Whew, I am beat. With the burning sun dipping below the horizon, the moon started to light the night sky. His duties done for the day, Wayne made a beeline for his room and dived onto his bed. Ugh, enough already. I can't take this anymore. Why is being regent so exhausting? We went hard today, so let's take tomorrow off. And the day after that, and the day after that. You know we can't, Ninim sighed, watching him roll around on the bed. That aside, Wayne, there's something I'd like to ask. My sincerest apologies, but we're closed for the day. I'm going to sleep now. So I ask all Ninims to please return to their quarters for the evening. It'll only take a second. You're not gonna let this go, huh? No. He huffed. Fine, as long as you add meow to the end of every sentence from now until bedtime. Hey, come on. What's wrong? Meow meow. Does your embarrassment outweigh your curiosity? Fine. Meow. I can't hear you. Meow. It'll be a problem if you don't speak up. Meow. My arm doesn't bend that way. Don't get cocky. Meow. I'm sorry. Meow. He whimpered. Well, let me guess. You're going to ask me why boobies went along with my plan, right? Boobies, huh? Anyway, you're not wrong. Meow. Anyway, you're not wrong. Meow. Ignoring Ninim's look of protest, he continued on in high spirits. Do you remember the news about the Empire? The message we got right before the meeting? Yes, of course. The Emperor of Earthworld seems to be recovering, right? That's the reason. What do you mean? Meow. He rose from his bed. Listen, our kingdom holds the key to one of the roads that link east and west. But compared to the other paths, it's totally run down and basically unusable. That's exactly why the Empire dispatched their soldiers here, to prevent other countries from conquering us as they try to gain access to better roads. When the time comes, we're going to become a vassal state to the Empire through either military force or diplomacy. Or at least that's what was supposed to happen. But their plan fell through when the Emperor became ill. Right, the Emperor's court's a mess. They're losing control over their conquered territory and putting out the embers of inevitable internal rebellion on their own. To buy themselves time, they have to play nice with small, weak countries like us. But he's recovered now. I don't understand. They have no obligation to help restructure our army, especially now. I mean, they'd be intentionally strengthening a potential enemy. Or maybe they're planning to crush us the moment after we manage to grow only slightly stronger. Meow. Wayne nodded. They know that even if we attack them, they'll be able to handle us with force, but that's not really what they're after. To the Empire, we're nothing but a foothold. Their real endgame is conquering the West. Think about it. What does a country need to gain control of a continent? What, you ask? Well, funds, food, equipment, and... She trailed off and gasped. Her eyes flew wide open and she looked at him incredulously. He flashed a quick grin. You got it. Fish Blundel's aim is to train Natra soldiers to serve in our imperial troops. That's right. Meanwhile, Fish was nodding and exchanging words with her aide in another room. You've heard the good news of His Imperial Majesty the Emperor's recovery, right? I'm sure we'll advance into the west again. When the time comes, we'll be glad to have more soldiers. At first glance, this exchange seems to place the burden solely on the Empire. But since the kingdom is practically destined to become a part of the Empire, think of the military instruction and financial contribution as an early investment. We have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Please wait, the aide objected. I must ask something before we move forward. What assurance do we have they won't bare their fangs at us? It was a perfectly reasonable question, but Feist already prepared an answer. He won't strike at the Empire. His proposal's proof of that. Say their soldiers grew to rival the Empire's. Do you really believe we'd lose? Of course not. It would be impossible. We're much too strong. Precisely. He seems to understand this. You might ask, what's the meaning behind his proposal? To ingratiate himself to his army? No, nothing that superficial. It was a calculated move to protect his people. What do you mean? He was probably aware of the Empire's recovery, meaning he foresaw our strategy to continue our march into the west. What would happen to Natra then? They have only two options, fight or surrender diplomatically. Either choice would be their final act as a sovereign nation. In that case, which one would be better? The aide's eyes widened. He proposed this to avoid falling under our complete control. Yes, I mean Natra's a pitifully small country that the Empire could easily polish off. If some high official in the Empire was after military exploits, an invasion of the kingdom is entirely possible, but this is a totally different story if their soldiers are positioned to join our army. So he's moving toward a diplomatic solution to form an allegiance. This will avoid needlessly spilling the blood of his citizens, and things will go smoothly for both of us if we don't resort to military force. Fewer lingering grudges and less aggression. In other words, he's appealing to his people and the provisional government by positioning this arrangement as an advantage. At the same time, he's laying the groundwork for a smooth transition, knowing they're destined to join the Empire. I must say, I'm impressed. In spite of herself, Faisha admired his strategy, his quiet stoicism during the meeting, and the ingenuity of his grand plan. The fact that this was coming from a 16-year-old kid made it all the more frightening. She didn't know how he'd respond when Natra was annexed, but if he stepped down from power, she'd welcome him to the Empire with open arms. Well, she did have one concern. Is this his only goal? She accepted this plan when she saw an advantage, but he must have seen this coming, seeing that everything was going according to his plan. Was it some sort of setup? I left nothing to chance. I crushed every gap and loophole. It'd be impossible to fall into a trap. I'm sure of it. But there was still a lingering sense of what if. Wayne Salema Arbalest might possess more knowledge than she'd imagined. I hate to admit it, but I can't deny he's very competent. She couldn't rule out any possibilities, so she knew she needed to keep a sharp eye out for him and kept the image of Wayne lingering in the back of her mind. Well, it's not a trap. What are you going on about all of a sudden? I just figured they're probably jumping at shadows right now. Ninnim flashed a dubious look at Wayne, and he placated her, signaling, "Don't worry about it," with his eyes. Anyway, you know why they went along with my conditions, right? Yeah, but your expression's telling me otherwise. I don't agree with your reasoning. Ninnim emphasized in dissatisfaction. Even if you're successful in receiving aid from the Empire, you've just sealed our fate. We're heading toward our demise. She hesitated. Do you really plan on surrendering? Sure, that's the plan. Hey, hold it. Don't twist my arm. Ninnim had wordlessly clawed into him. You should know. You were with me during my time in the Empire. They're ridiculously strong. Defying them would only result in bloodshed. Besides, I watched how they operate. They weren't so bad, you know. Sure, it'll raise some concerns when we become their territory, but we'll adapt soon enough. And how do you truly feel? With this, I can say goodbye to this annoying-ass job and... Yow! My arm! I'm sure you can do it, Wayne. You can stand against the Empire. Nah, sounds like a pain. Ugh, my arm shouldn't bend that way. She made him writhe and scream for a little while longer before dropping his arm and accepting defeat. Turning her back toward him, "If you hate it so much, betray me," he whispered soothingly. "Kill me and this will go up in smoke." Hey, Ninnim, my heart. You listening to this? You know your heart wouldn't do that to you. No matter how much she cried out or protested or disagreed with his decisions, she would never defy him in the end. Her ancestors had taken a vow of absolute loyalty when they first came to this country and began to serve the royal family. Oh, don't sulk now. I get that you're feeling reluctant, but all countries disappear sooner or later. We just happen to be next in line. Will our troops really accept this? I'm sure they'll be upset at first, but we'll convince them we're biding our time to plan a counterattack or something. Once they see the Empire's strength for themselves, I'm sure their urge to revolt will subside, and when the time finally comes, they'll be ready to pledge allegiance to the Empire, and all our government positions will be reassigned, allowing me to take my money and live the good life. It's the perfect plan if I do say so myself. I hope it fails." He chuckled in high spirits. "Don't you know schemes are my forte? Just you wait. Also, you're forgetting something, Nanim." Meow. Good girl. She sighed even deeper in the face of her master's hubris.